Hi guys, it's album review time. We've got Skid Row and the gang's all here. So this is a highly anticipated album. And even though this is only their 6th studio album, they have so much influence in the world of rock and metal, without a doubt. I mean, I've said this in a recent reaction to one of their songs, new songs, that you often hear bands and you read reviews of bands, and often it's for fans of Skid Row, influenced by Skid Row. They play a massive part, even though, like I said, their discography is not huge. They do play a massive part in rock and metal. So they should do as well. I mean, the quality is, for me at least, of the first 2 albums were just amazing albums. So you can understand the influence they have on many bands out there. So this album's coming out on October the 14th on Ear Music. It's a label that's, you know, it's really getting somewhere now with some great signings. 10 tracks on this, so really nice and slick, you know, not too long, not too short. Like I said, the 6th studio album. So I haven't heard all the Skid Row studio albums, so I'm not going to compare this to albums I haven't heard, or I'm not going to compare any of the musicians to other musicians I haven't heard, obviously. I'm just going to compare it in some ways to what I have heard already, and of course talk about it on a standalone level. So Skid Row, the debut album, came out in 1989, obviously hugely successful, brilliant album, really put them on the map. And then they released the outstanding Slave to the Grind, my favourite Skid Row album. So how does it compare to those? It's definitely more along the lines of the debut album, Skid Row. If you've heard all the 3 songs already, I'm sure you had, the 3 singles. The whole album, near enough, carries on along that same level of rock and roll, that sort of way the debut album felt. A little bit sleazy, rock and roll, whereas Slave to the Grind was more metal, without a doubt, a really heavy album. There's a few elements of that on this album, but I would say it definitely stands alongside the debut Skid Row. Let's talk about the members quickly before we get into each song. So 3 original members left in this band: Dave Sabo on the guitar, Scotty Hill on the guitar, Rachel Bolan on the bass. So they're the 3 original members. Man, I mean, this is a great guitar-driven album. You know, it is. The guitars are right up front, as they always have been, well, in the stuff I've heard of Skid Row. So, you know, you're not lacking in guitars here. They're right up in the mix. They sound great. I mean, the guitarists are really busy. They almost give me that feel, definitely, of that original Skid Row album, of course, again, you know, where the guitars are very, very busy in the mix. Lots of intricate rhythm playing. It's not just riffs, you know, there's lots of stuff going on between the 2 guitarists. The bass guitaring is just outstanding. I think the mix on this album is great. It's really well balanced. No one's drowned out by anything. So, you know, I think that's really important, is that you hear every instrument just how it should be. You know, the bass is right up. It's hard sometimes. If you want to get the guitars right up in the mix like they Skid Row do, everything else can suffer, but it doesn't on this. It's a great sound. And you've got Rob Hammersmith on the drums, of course, along with Rachel Bolan, just do a fantastic job. It's a real groove-laden album at times, so to get that groove, you've got to have the bass and the drums well in sync with each other, and you know, this sounds great rhythm-wise as well. And last but not least, Eric Gromwell on the vocals. Been a Gromwell fan for a long time, since I first heard him, probably on the Heat album. Address the Nation was the first time I heard Eric's vocals, and you know, blown away. Just so energetic, can hit any note possible, doesn't matter, but energy in his vocal, you know, he's got a great front man as well. He's, you know, what he's been through as well. He was really ill and he's got over cancer and he's fighting fit and he looks good now. You know, he went a bit skinny, obviously, with the treatment he was getting from cancer. So understandably, but it looks like he's putting a bit of weight on now and he looks like he's in top form. He really does. I love Eric Gromwell. he's just a brilliant vocalist, like I said, brilliant frontman. So, I mean, we're going to get into the, you know, the argument which will always be there for anyone who fronts Skid Row, and that's any vocalist will always they will divide the fans no matter what. So you get people, especially die-hard Skid Row fans from the beginning, you know, probably find it hard to accept anyone new. But, you know, Sebastian Bach was not just a great vocalist, he was a brilliant frontman, of course, and the aggression he shown and the, you know, the energy he showed on stage, a different level, it really was. And but things move on, you know. I, for one, and this is me being a Skid Row fan, but not as in fanatical, you know, just I'm not everything Skid Row. I like the band, I like what I've heard of them in the past, and I'll give them the time of day all the time, every time I hear something new, for without a doubt. So that's the sort of fan I am. I'm not die hard, but I do really like them. That's what I'm saying. So, you know, a new singer, especially when you're taking over from a frontman like Skid Row, we're not taking over from him, obviously he was the first one, but everyone's sort of having to fill his shoes. It doesn't matter how many years it's going to pass by, everyone will always look at Sebastian Bach, probably. You know, that's just the way it is. But, you know, reading things about Eric Gromwell, he's got a lot of fans, Skid Row fans on board, and there's a lot that are not. And, you know, I always think it's everyone's opinion. Of course it is, as long as you give someone a chance. Some people will dismiss a new member from any band, whether, you know, they just dismiss them because they just want Bach. That's it. They want Sebastian Bach. That's it. No one else would do. No one else will ever fill his shoes, and they won't even give a proper listen to anyone new. I don't mind an opinion as long as someone's given a chance. To dismiss someone and not even bother, not giving it the proper chance, that's wrong. If you listen to Eric Gromwell and you really, you know, can't get along with his voice or how he is as a front man, but you've given it a good chance, perfectly fine. I think that, you know, you've given it a chance, it's just not for you. We can just be switched on by something, or we can't. It's not as simple as saying he's good, you've got to like him as well. It's not that simple. And I would really compare this album, talking about the album itself now, it almost reminds me of when Todd La Torre joined Queensryche. And straight away we got the Queensryche we wanted, and it was back. Queensryche was back. But what they've done, they laid a foundation with that comeback album to produce even better music as it's going on. I'm not sure how what happened with the songwriting on this album. It almost seemed like Eric was there. The first single was introduced and it was done and dusted. I don't know if I just didn't keep up with the news, but it was almost like Eric had just gone in there, laid some vocals down, and it was done. So I don't know what he's had in the influence of songwriting. I really don't know, but all I can say is this is a really great album that really sits alongside the debut album, without a doubt. But it almost gives me glimpses throughout this album, especially on a few tracks, where I think that the next album will honestly take them to another level, a bit like Slave to the Grind did compared to the debut. So this is a really great album, and I think it's given me, as a Skid Row fan, but not fanatical, obviously, like I said, I don't want to upset any, you know, Skid Row fans, but I feel this sits alongside really well with the debut album, and I think that's a really good start to give everyone where the beginnings of how it all happened. It really does give me those feels. But like I said, you know, I think they're heading for something more like Slave to the Grind next. I think once they embed as a band and they spend time together and they write together, I think the next album, although this is a fucking good album, is just gonna fucking exceed everything on this album. But man, this is a great album. It is just so catchy, so hooky. And I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So lucky enough to hear it now, but I want to go into the tracks. So let me put it this way. I don't dislike any of these tracks. I think they're all good to fucking great. That's what they are. So we start off with Hell or High Water. This is an excellent track, a great track to start off with. It's a medium pace track. The intent is there immediately from the beginning. The feel of the debut, like I've said a couple of times now, is there. It's definitely evident, without a doubt. Heavy rock and roll with energy. Guitars are really high in the mix with that slightly sleazy, bluesy feel that Skid Row had on that 1989 debut. Gang vocal chorus, one of their trademarks, you would say. Of course, Eric Gromble is just giving it all from the beginning on every track, hitting unbelievable heights in this opening track. Some excellent busy guitar work, and that carries on throughout this album. We move on to the first time we heard this band as a unit. The Gang's All Here, the title track, the first single. All right, the gang's all here, the gang's all here. All right. It's a really fun rock and roll tune, this is. It's a great way to introduce the band. So it's the first time we heard them, obviously. It really does, again, pay homage to the debut for me. It's become a staple of the live set. I've noticed there's lots of live footage of them doing this. It does make the perfect live track, actually, especially with that shout it out loud chorus. We move on to Not Dead Yet. This is a fast, energy-infused rock and roll track. Eric is perfect vocalist to ramp up the energy in this song, ramps it up to the max. And he's done that, remember, with everything he's done. Heat, the New Horizon album, he just adds that extra energy to his voice. It's brilliant. And this one has that almost punky attitude that Skid Row sometimes have. Next up is Time Bomb. This is the latest single. Audio was brought out last week, done a reaction to it. The video is out today, I'm yet to see that. But I love this track. Lyrically, it's taken some criticism under my video as well, the tick, tick, ticking time bomb bit. But man, come on, give them a break. I mean, they've come out in full force on this, and you know, they've given, I think, what people want to hear, whether you agree with that or not, but it's given me what I want to hear. So it's got a great stomp to it, this song, great bass line, ultra catchy soaring chorus. What more could you want? Resurrected is next. It's a good title in it for this band at the moment. So love the groove to this track. It's got a great stuttering riff in the verses and a chorus that hooks you in. Probably second time round, I was thinking second time round, it really hooked me in. It's a great rocking track. Nowhere Fast is next. Maybe one of my favourite tracks on the album. Probably the one that leans most towards Slave to the Grind period, I would say. Especially the heaviness of the verses. A slight odd time signature that's very cool. Again, the energy is ramped up to the max, and I love the stop-start chorus, a highlight of the album for sure. The Lights Come On is next. Another cool bass line kicks this one off, and basically what you got here is a real proper rock and roll song. The vibe of the debut is there again. It's almost like a 12-bar boogie track, but obviously the guitars are ranked right up to make it a heavy 12-bar boogie track. The band sound on this one, like they're having so much fun, is absolutely fucking brilliant to hear. Tear It Down is next. This was the second single. I love this track as well. It's an excellent stomping track. I like the use of the gang vocals, not just in the chorus, but throughout the song. Didn't realise how fucking good this song was actually the first time I heard it, and now I've heard it a few more times. It's fucking great. Infectious to say the least, that chorus. I love the solo in this. Really cool twin lead part as well, tagged on the end of the instrumental part. October's Song. Now this is something different, it really is. This is track 9, so the penultimate track. Just over 7 minutes long. The band take a completely different direction here with a dark track that could be portrayed as a ballad of sorts. It's probably the closest song to a ballad on the album, but I still don't think there's a full-on ballad. I think this really gives us a peek, and I was saying before, what is to come with the band. I think it gives you that. Maybe a look to the next album, what we're going to get on the next album. It's dark, it's epic, it's haunting, some of it. It's an excellent change up that from all the fun rock and roll, if you like, that we've had so far. It's a real difference. I absolutely fucking love the 3-minute mark where it gets a bit heavier, goes into the instrumental section. It's a standout song for sure. And then we move on to the last track, Worlds on Fire. I really like this track as well. It's a great way to end the album. More of a metal side of the band coming out here, where the sort of sleazy rock and roll, the debut was evident, I suppose, for the rest of it. It's still got that great energy running through it, like the whole album has. My favourite part on this is really stand out for me. I love the bridge to the chorus. The chorus is fucking great, but the bridge is just an outstanding bit of melody, and it's got a great shout it out loud chorus again. So guys, Skid Row, The Gang's All Here. It's out on October the 14th, really soon. What's that, about 3 weeks or something like that? I think it's been well worth the wait. You know, like I said, I haven't heard the stuff from Subhuman Race. I heard Subhuman Race. I didn't hear any of the stuff in between, and there's only been a couple of albums, some EPs and stuff. But for me, this is a great album that really does sit alongside that debut with hints of Slave to the Grind for me. I know that, and like I said, it's everyone's opinion. I know this is going to divide fans, like things like this always do, especially frontmen, especially vocalists. They're the hardest people to replace a lot of the time, although in other bands you could argue guitarists are and stuff. But usually the vocalist is the hardest one to replace. And Eric Gromwell, I think, is doing a fucking marvellous job. And I almost said in the past, I was gutted when he left Heat. Heat are one of my favourite bands. But now we get Skid Row with Eric Gromwell and we get Heat. It's a winner. It's a fucking winner for everyone. I really do think it is. So guys, are you going to get this? What do you think of the 3 singles so far? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.